When you're in the prison, did you interview Martin? What's your impressions and viewpoints on him?
But yeah, Phil, my impressions were that he was fairly dull and uninteresting, and that he had to be told and reminded numerous times about what he had to do and where he had to go.
Welcome to the Wasp Files. Some of this material may be distressing, and viewer discretion is advised. This episode of the Wasp Files contains an interview with a gentleman who I'm very grateful for coming forward and providing some valuable insights into Martin Bryant whilst he was incarcerated at the Psychiatric wing at Risdon Prison. This gentleman's very conservative and has provided some very interesting insights and even some eyebrow-raising comments. So without further ado, please enjoy this interview.
When you were there, did you have much dealings with Martin Bryant? And
He was fairly uninteresting. Initially he was held in the prison hospital where I worked. But yeah, I didn't get the impression that he was very bright.
I've read a lot of the psych reports about Martin.
Did you ever read the report by Ian Joblin?
Yes, I've got that report.
So he couldn't find any evidence of mental illness, but said he was mad by the very act that he did. Ian Joblin worked fairly closely with Paul Mullen. He had fairly close ties to the police force for many years. So I don't know. I'd have to respect Paul Mullen's opinion.
But trying to get to the bottom of who this character is has been ambiguous.
Yeah. Martin's mother?
I haven't met her. I've wanted to speak to her. I've read her book, but I haven't able to speak to her as yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, as I understand it, he didn't have a very good relationship with his mother. She loved him, but I don't think she knew how to handle him.
Yeah. He probably presented a few challenges for her. Yeah. There's also the question of whether he actually did his father in.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I looked into that fairly carefully. The thing that suggested it was suicide was that Maurice had gotten his affairs in order. You know, he sort of changed all the accounts into Carlene's name. He organised all the sort of financials and the accounts and things like that. And he rang up Lindy, I think the night before he died, and said, "Have I been a good father?" And when he was found, he did have some Serapaks in his pocket, but he did have Martin's diver belt around his neck, and he drowned in the dam.
Yeah.
Once again, there's this weirdness, this ambiguity.
Yeah, a lot of stuff you'll never get answers to.
I think this is the most frustrating thing for me. And look, I've spoken to a lot of the first responders, a lot of the police, and that's the thing I'm saying is everybody wants it to go away. Everybody wants to put it to bed. No one wants to dig up old scars. It's just that there's not enough answers out there.
The girlfriend?
Petra has disappeared. I would dearly love to speak to Petra. As I understand it, she is still living in Tasmania, maybe under a different name, or she certainly lives in a quiet part of Tasmania. That's what I've been told. But she has disappeared. I can't find her. Nobody can. No one seems to lock down who this guy actually is. I'm trying to see him in prison, and the hammers come down. They will not let me see Martin Bryant. And it's like, why? Why can't somebody go and talk to this guy?
Yeah, I think they're keeping a fairly tight lid on it all.
Well, that just makes me go, that's what makes people kind of go, well, what are you hiding?
Who said he had to learn how to push a broom?
One of the inmates said he was really dumb.
Yeah.
But then other guys said, well, we played chess with him.
Did you ever get to speak to John Avery?
John Avery, no, I haven't. John Avery, I'm also not a big fan of, I have to say. I mean, he's been proven to be criminally a bit dodgy. These guys, I just get the impression they're not telling the full story. Nobody has that final information.
Yeah, it's probably worth talking problem with John Avery, though, I mean, he spent a lot of time with him alone.
He did, and he supposedly extracted the confession.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'd talk to John Avery, see what you can get out of him.
I'll give him a go. I've been a bit critical of John Avery, so maybe he'll just say, go away, but I'll certainly give it a go.
Yeah.
When you're in the prison, did you interview Martin and get the chance to prescribe his conditions and things like that? What's your impressions and viewpoints on him?
Look, I didn't have a lot of contact with him because mostly it was the nurses and the officers. But yeah, he's fairly dull and uninteresting. I tended to sort of oversee the arrangements and not have daily contact with him. But yeah, Phil, my impressions were he was fairly dull and uninteresting. And that he had to be told and reminded numerous times about what he had to do and where he had to go.
You know, was he open about talking about what he'd done? And, you know, did he say, oh, yeah, well, I did this and I did the shooting and da-da-da? Or was that really a topic that never really came up?
It didn't really come up because we were cautious of not influencing the judicial process. And it wasn't just with him, it was with any inmate. We tended not to talk about their guilt or innocence.
I suppose that would be the protocol. You're there to do your job.
Yeah. If I think of anything else, I'll make some notes. It's a really fascinating subject. I mean, half the population probably doesn't want to know about it, and the other half do.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm finding. It's very polarising.
Yeah.
And as I said, I've dug deeper than most. I've really researched it meticulously. And I've spoken to a lot of the first responders and the police and authorities. I have the greatest respect for them because I'm very interested in their story, how they were affected by things. Because I know that event blew a hole through the whole of Australia, really, particularly the people that were directly involved. And I understand why they don't want to know about it anymore.
Yeah.
But it is a part of our history. It's a dark part, but it is a fundamentally major part of our history that changed our gun law, and I think it needs to be chronicled in some fashion. But then you've got the other side where you go, well, when they recovered the firearms, they were so catastrophically destroyed that they couldn't really match the guns to the crime scenes or even Martin Bryant to the guns. And that
the guns weren't that badly destroyed.
Well, I heard that the chambers on the AR-15 a round had exploded in there so dramatically that it had melted into the bolt face, the brass cartridge. So if you overload a rifle cartridge and it explodes, it will blow components of the guns to bits, but it won't do what was done to that AR-15. If the extreme heat of the fire melted everything, well, then you'd go, okay, yes, I can understand that. But that AR-15 was recovered in fairly pristine condition. And the FN that was found on the roof was missing the return carrier spring, which is a big chunk of spring. And the barrel had been bent and things like that. You should have been able to get ballistics that kind of said, yep, this is the bullet that was there, and that bullet came from that gun, but apparently that wasn't the case. And then, of course, there's some weird stuff where Martin goes, yep, I own the AR-15 and I own this gun and I own that gun. And then they go, okay, what about the FN? He goes, no, I don't own that gun. I've never seen that gun before. You go, well, why wouldn't he? He's confessed to the other ones. Why would he not sort of say, yeah, I own that one as well? One of the strangest things was when they went to the Clare Street home. It was a cluttered mess with toys and junk everywhere and animal feces, and except for one room. And the one room was clear of everything but a table and two chairs, and on that table was some printed firearm and military magazines. So my question is, who was the other chair for? There were two chairs in the room, Petra.
Yeah.
You think, why would it be Petra?
She was his handler.
Is that what you think as well? That's certainly been suggested that was the case.
Look, it wouldn't surprise me. It honestly wouldn't surprise me.
If you're sort of looking at things like Petra and saying, yeah, she was an intelligent young woman as far as I'm aware, be led to believe.
What puzzled me was, she was attractive, intelligent. Now, why was she with Martin?
Yeah, she was interviewed by Ray Martin, and he goes, why did you fall in love with him? And she said, oh, he was kind and gentle and he looked after me. And you think, really?
Yeah.
So if she was a handler, then you go, okay, then you've got a conspiracy. You've got somebody involved.
Yep. There's a couple of vital bits of evidence missing. Oh, well, you've jogged my memory a bit. I'll have a bit more of a think. If I can remember any other interesting things, I'll let you know.
Please do. Just keep in touch. You know, I mean, I need people who've had some contact with the situation to put me on the straight and narrow and go, no, this is what actually happened and this is what he was like. And that's why I'm talking to everybody. Look, I thank you very much for your input.
See ya.
See you soon. That conversation was held with who worked at Risdon. He was pretty much in charge of the psychiatric wing over at Risdon. But the most amazing thing that came out of that conversation was when I mentioned the empty room with the 2 chairs, who was the other chair for, and he just said Petra, and then took me back a bit, and then he goes, oh, she was his handler. So very interesting stuff. Anyway, that's the end of the conversation. It is the 20th of the 8th, 2018.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Wasp Files. Feel free to share far and wide and see the attached files in support of the episode. Thank you.